great to be here with you today. And for starting up, let me set up a question. Have you ever received a product request from your product manager that got you stop and say, wait, what?
I have.
Okay.
I once was building some web apps for a company, and the product managers loved so much the new look and feel of the system that he asked me to create an app that will be the operation system with taskbar and office apps and everything.
That's pretty wild. I think I can do better. I once was told to create an entire feature as an iframe and to insert it into an existing feature. I once was told to upgrade the framework in more than 200 applications at once. And I once was told to create a microservice, and then when it was up and running on production, I was asked to reduce its cost by half. How is it even possible? I'm telling you, product managers can be pretty wild.
That is pretty impressive. But I have a killer one. Just last week, I got a report about a bug hiding in a system, and the users could not use that part of the system. But don't worry, nothing that cannot be solved with some K-300.
Very funny. But I think the real killer one is the latest project we participated in. About a year ago, remember? When the product manager asked us to create a system that creates books, not ebooks, but the real paper ones. And it should be in high quality, ready for print, and of course, in our technology, which is Node.js and JavaScript, of course.
So, hi everyone. First of all, Mai just flew in from a lot just for you, so a big round of applause, please. So, this is Mai, I'm Alon, and we're excited to share with you our journey today, a journey that took us down the rabbit hole of unexpected challenges and innovative solutions.
Over the next half hour, or what's left from it, we're going to take you to the process of building a non-standard feature. And you're probably thinking to yourself, you're not going to need to create a system that creates books. Let me tell you, you got that right. But the next time you get tackled by your product manager, we will leave you with 4 takeaways to take to your next project, any project. And we're here to demonstrate that everything is possible with Node.js. But first thing first, MyHeritage, the company we work at. MyHeritage is a very unique company because everything we do, every feature, every system, every new thing we create is aimed for one thing, to connect our users to the people that are closest to them, their families, using massive data, whether it's inserted by the users themselves or data that we buy or DNA tests that the users takes. We're able to reveal such an amazing stories on a daily basis. We're also the pioneers of all the field of AI, because we've been doing this for the past 6 years. We're able to make your images come alive, or just to colorize your picture to see how it was in real life, an old picture, or just restore the colors of an old broken image. And all of this is already there in MyHeritage for the past 6 years.
Now, Miami, we were not actually part of the team that worked on this book project. We're not involved in the project in any way, but we saved the project. Confused? Let me explain. My stories. This product that is already in production, absolutely loved by everyone that tried it, has a simple feature. Once you register, you get a weekly email with a question about your past, such as, what is the strong memory of your grandparents? Or through the years, has your relationship with your siblings changed? And after a year, you have answered 52 questions that give a unique perspective of your life. And once you're ready, you can just order it as a physical, printed book. Now, how is this related to Ask? You might be wondering.
This is the time to tell you something you don't know about Alon, which is probably everything, but just to get to know him better. The person who's standing next to me not only is a brilliant architect for the past 17 years, is also a book expert. Surprising, right? I was surprised as well. With more than 30 years of experience. It all started when he was just 6 years old. Look how cute he was when he just started his first book, right?
Not exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
I grew up in a publishing company. So my parents owned a publishing house, a non-profit publishing house. And as kids, we got involved in everything going on there. So there's a good chance I took that video. And once in a few weeks, when a new magazine would come out, we would gather all the family, sometimes even invite some friends to insert magazines into envelopes party. And as a teenager, I could start participating in content creation and start designing books and bringing them to print. So when I heard about the My Stories project, I went into the product manager's office and I told him that he needs me. It took some persistence, but eventually he let me read some documents, and it was pretty clear that he didn't even know how to ask the right questions. And this is takeaway number one for today. You can make a very big difference if you step out of your natural boundaries and take initiative.
So when Alon joined the team, pretty early, he realized that the book has two different parts, the cover and the content. The content with the text, the layout, the chapters, the table of content and everything, and the cover, which is probably a plain PDF. And when he realized this, he realized he was going to need help. So he did what he does every time he needs help or is looking for someone who loves taking challenges in Node.js. He just called me. And that's how I got involved in the project.
Which was really exciting for me because whenever Mai gets involved, the amazing developer she is, challenges are left frightening. Now, a few years ago, I worked in a big enterprise on a big project, and this project had a brilliant architecture. It was really easily scalable by the number of users. But what does not change in an internal tool in an enterprise?
I know. The number of users, of course.
Exactly. So the data was growing very fast. The number of users wasn't. So the system was scalable, but it was scaling in the wrong dimension. And we had to keep making changes to the code to support the growing amount of data. Now, My Stories is similar because the book industry is built for scale. Books are printed in millions of copies. But because it takes so long to write a book, years sometimes, in the end they lay out the book by hand, by a designer, and then they can print as many copies as they want. But My Stories is very different because we have a scale of authors and a scale of books. We cannot allow ourselves to lay them out by a designer for each book. And even all these AI tools that you see advertisements for, they will write the book for you. They give you something initial, and you're the one supposed to perfect it and then bring it to print. So when I went, no, your turn.
Yeah, so this is challenging to do it in this direction. And some of the challenges that we're going to approach here, that we thought in the beginning that we're going to approach, are in the text flow. The text flows between pages, and you can see here the example from Microsoft Word of some of the requirements that need to be handled. Just imagine doing this with code, just to handle when the text flows to a page. It cannot be an empty, just a line in an empty page. It needs to be like a paragraph or part of a paragraph, but it should have more bazaar in it. So just imagine doing this by code. The second challenge is the table of content, which is actually an iterative process because every time you change the table of content, you may affect the number of pages. And when you affect the number of pages, you need to go back to the table of content and change it again. And when you change the table of content, you may affect the number of pages until it's done. So just imagine again doing this by code again. And the last thing that I'm going to reveal is that everything needs to be millimeter perfect. Because we're going with this code output to print, Nothing can be in the wrong place because it won't be shown in the book. So everything, but everything needs to be millimeter perfect.
Now, when I joined the team was trying to create the book in PDF directly. And as a past designer, I realized this is not a good way to go because they needed to support all these requirements and a lot of other that we spared from you manually. What we need is a layout system. And my first thought was Microsoft Word. Love it or hate it, Microsoft Word is an excellent layout system that supports all the flexibility you need. There's a tiny problem with Microsoft Word. It is not supposed to run on a headless server. And Microsoft actually advised against it. So after researching the very few options available, we came to a surprising solution that now when we are going to reveal it, the audience here will be divided into 4 parts. Most of you will probably say, what is that? Some of you will actually recognize it, and your reaction is going to be, yuck. And some of you will also recognize it, and you'll say, well, isn't it that math thing? And last but not least, people from the academy. And their reaction will be something like, oh, this is so cool. I've been waiting so long to see this thing in production. And the chosen tool is?
Drums.
LaTeX.
Academic people.
Yeah. So LaTeX is a known tool in the academy used mainly for writing academic articles. And yes, this is you say LaTeX and not latex. So whenever you see an academic paper, it was probably written in LaTeX or layout by LaTeX. And this makes a lot of sense for us because the academy scales in the same dimension that we do. Because they write a lot of articles, they can't afford designers to lay them out, and they get a single PDF out of each one. So this is the same dimension that we scale it. Now LaTeX can lay out not only articles, but also entire books, and it does it really well, supporting everything we needed and much more.
How does Node comes in action when we use LaTeX? So what we did was to create a Node service that will prepare the entire data, the user questions, the user's answers, and everything, the chapter's title. And then we created a template in LaTeX, which in LaTeX, you just do it like this. At the beginning, you can see, just a sec, all the design parts, kind of like CSS, if you're from a front-end guys. So at the beginning, all the style things, the design and the requirements needed to your book. At the bottom, the entire text, written in a semantic way. You can just put the text in the file, and it will create it in a pretty nice layout. So the Node service prepared the data and injected it into the right places, and then just ran the LaTeX commands on the PDF file, so it can be perfect. Another tiny problem with LaTeX. None of us and no other team member knew any LaTeX. I mean, look at this thing. It doesn't look like anything we know. Sorry, academic people, but where were they? But for the rest of us, at least. So luckily, we're in the age of AI, 2025, and this project was written a year ago, so we used mostly GitHub Copilot to do it for us. And he just did an amazing job. He wrote the entire template file for us. And this is takeaway lesson number 3 for today. If you can use AI, just use it. I know it's quite obvious today, but even if you have a completely new language to learn, don't go ahead and learn it. Just use AI. It did it perfectly. So we created the template file for us. And we rarely had to go to Stack Overflow or to the real documentation. Every time we needed to do some manual tweaks or changes, we just wrote him or asked him on the existing code, can you change this title to be 2 points bigger? And he just did it for us. Look how after a few seconds and the title is bigger. And if we had to understand the code, or if we wanted to do, we just ask him, can you document this section for me? And we read it like plain English. So today we still don't know any LaTeX. And the benefits of going to production with, or just developing with AI, or just using the AI to tackle such a big learning curve are obvious. But it comes with some challenges. Those challenges kept us awake at night. And our babies, but never mind. And those challenges of going with, to production with code that we don't know. But luckily, this is an offline process, and we gain trust in our code, because every time we saw a book or the PDF that came out perfectly fine, we knew that everything is working, and we can just trust on our code and on the AI code, and everything is going to be okay. And the second thing is that the code is more complex, and sometimes even redundant. You can see here an example from production that an entire command that is not in use, and this is code that is on production. But we're okay with that, because we didn't write the code. We don't know what needs to be removed or what's not. So we live with it.
Now, books have two separate layouts, as we said. We have the contents and the cover. Now, when we're talking about the cover, the challenges are different, because we don't have the text overflow and the flow handling. What we have is exact location of components and of fonts and colors. And LaTeX will be way overcomplicated for this. But creating the PDF directly is actually a really good solution for this.
And if you felt like this was too much about books or stories or everything around, from now on, we're talking only tech. So stay tuned.
So we chose the jsPdf library, which is a really good job. It allows the precision we needed and to work in millimeters. But it had something really annoying about it. Every setting is global. I mean, look at font sizes. You change the font globally, and then it will affect all the actions you're going to run until the next time you're changing the font. And this is error-prone, and it's really hard to break into functions, and it's just annoying. What we would like to have is something like a default font, and to be able to override it for a specific usage. Now, one solution would be a wrapper function. So the with_font function here receives a font that I want to use and the action that I want to run, and it will change the font, run the action, and then it will restore the font to the previous setting, which will give you the effect of feeling of what we need. But having these wrapper functions around your code is also not very maintainable. What I would really like is a fluent syntax. But the problem with creating a fluent syntax is that I need to run something before and after the action. This is something that is not possible with regular functions. And what do? This is where we meet the JavaScript proxy object. How many of you have used JavaScript proxy object in a real system?
Okay. How many of you wanted but wasn't quite sure, or just didn't have the opportunity to use it? Okay.
Okay, good we came today. So the JavaScript proxy object is an object that from the outside looks like another object, which is called target. So if you enumerate the properties and functions of the proxy object, you get the same list that you'll get on the target. But when you call these functions, instead of invoking the target functions, it will invoke a handler function on the proxy. So for example, this proxy object right here, whatever it wraps, when you call a function, it will just log what you try to do without actually invoking that function. If you would like to also invoke the function, you can just do so. You have all the information you need. Now we could use this exact approach to create our fluent syntax. So we use the same wrapper function, but this time we put it on the PDF object, and instead of returning the PDF object again like you usually do to create this fluent syntax, it returns a proxy of the PDF object. And whenever you call a function on that proxy, it will change the font, then invoke the function you are trying to invoke, and then it will restore the previous global font. And with this, we got our beautiful fluent syntax. Now, there's a lot of other things you can do with a proxy object. So, for example, you can use it to log all the access you have to your objects in a generic way. So you can throw every object at it, and it will do it, similar to what we did in the beginning. You can use it for generic caching. One interesting thing I once did with it is to have a framework that behind the scenes brings information from the database, but the teams could declare their objects normally, and the rest of the system wasn't even aware that it's bringing it from somewhere else, because it was all hidden in the proxy logic. And if you want to see more, there's this really nice repo that someone put together with a lot of examples. So you can go look at it. So now we had our cover, and we had our content, and we had our fluent syntax, and the code was just perfect.
Not pretty perfect, actually.
Sure you want to tell them about that?
If I want to save them hours and hours of debugging, sure I do. Thank you. So I'll start with a story about a bug that happened to better and greater minds than ours in NASA. In 1999, NASA launched a satellite to Mars. The satellite was developed by NASA, but one of the systems was developed by a subcontractor. The subcontractor used inches, but NASA used centimeters and meters. And when the satellite fed data from the program, there was no proper conversion. The satellite got too close to Mars and burned up. In our case, nothing got burned up, luckily. But as we said, everything has to be millimeter perfect. And when we came to the cover, and it was the end, like the final touches, we saw that something doesn't look the same as the design. No matter how much we debugged it, and for hours we debugged it, no matter how much we debugged it, we couldn't find the issue. But then we went back to the design doc, and we just saw the issue right in front of our eyes. 0.75 inches are not 18 millimeters. It's the design doc. They are actually 19. And the same was in the cover overlap and the cover squeeze. And those millimeters sums up. And then when we saw the result, we saw those millimeters that are not in place, and it wasn't going to print that way. So we just fixed it, and now everything was just perfect. And we comfort ourselves that those bugs happen to better and greater minds than ours, in NASA even. And that's takeaway lesson number 4 for today, that the bugs are not always in the code, especially if you have such a complex product. So those bugs happen, and it happens all the time. And for me, as a front-end developer, the most interesting question was, how do you debug, or how do you see the difference between the outcome and the design in millimeters? How do you debug it with your eyes as a front-end developer, like a human being? So we just created an HTML that puts both the design doc and the output cover, puts them one on top of each other. We added 3 buttons to play, the X, the Y, and the opacity. And we play with it to see how much we need to move, or where do we need to do our next change in the code. And yes, this HTML was also created with AI in like 2 to 5 minutes, I think.
Then it was time to deploy, to test, pack, and run. Now our architecture shouldn't be very surprising. We had 2 Lambda functions, one for the cover, one for the contents, and they were triggered by the API server. These 2 functions are very different though. The cover is done with jsPdf, that's a JavaScript library. So it's written in a normal Lambda function in a Node.js runtime. The content, however, is using LaTeX. LaTeX are binaries that needs to be installed in the system. It cannot run in a Node.js environment. So we use the Lambda that is based on a Docker image. Now, if you never used a Docker-based Lambda before, it's really simple. You use a base image from AWS for the Node.js runtime and just follow the docs. Now, the big advantage of using Lambda functions in this case was the cost. These Lambda functions are running whenever a user wants to print a book or wants to preview a print of the book. And this can happen in a very high scale, but most of the time it doesn't happen at all. And Lambda functions allow us to pay only for the time that this actually runs, and at the same time scale up very fast when we needed more traffic. Now this is scaling in the correct dimension.
To sum everything up for you to take to your next project or to your next time that you get tackled by your creative product manager, first thing is if you can donate or can add something to an existing project, just step up. Step out of your natural boundaries and go save a project. And the second thing, and please note this before you go to write code, make sure you're scaling in the right dimension. Make sure that everything you're going to do is in the right dimension and you're not going to invest time and money in flows that are not going to happen at all or going to happen sometimes. You can save a lot of money. The third thing, which I think is obvious today, but you can see in our example that you can go and use AI even if you don't know the language at all. So if you can use AI, just use it. And the last one is, and this will save you a lot of time, that the bugs are not always in the code. Just challenge your assumption. Go back to the beginning and see that everything you thought is right is actually right.
And above all, we proved once again that everything is possible with Node.js. Thank you so much for spending your precious pre-lunch time with us. Go write your own unique stories and build amazing things.
And if you want to win some tokens from us, and we have plenty of them because we're two, just come meet us at lunch and tell us about your creative product managers and what is your unique story. Come meet us and get your own token.
Bye-bye.